So this meme showed up on Facebook, and it made me start thinking about how uncool the left is at this point. And ultimately, there's a very good argument to be made that the left was never actually cool, but due to the fact that there was at least some truth standing up to power, in that they were pointing out that the Republicans during the Bush administration were in fact very corrupt and were doing some particularly bad things like the war in Iraq, then there was a certain element of coolness to being a leftist that really just no longer exists anymore. Like, there's nothing that wrong with Donald Trump that they're complaining about, at least. I mean, I'm going to admit, for the sake of argument, there probably is a number of things wrong with Trump. But I don't even really think it's the things that we actually know about. I think that Trump is doing things behind the scenes in the way that all presidents do that we aren't really even aware of, that nobody's reporting upon. And those aren't the things that the left is actually complaining about. They're just making up stuff, basically, and then acting like they're cool because orange man, white, orange man, bad because males are bad and capitalism is bad. And that's really pathetic. Hey everybody, it's Prince of Queens, and I'm just gonna pontificate on that for a little while because it seems like it's worth talking about. How do you convince the left that they're no longer cool? Most of the people who truly understand this are people who are older, and, honestly, they just don't really listen to you when you're in your late 30s, even if you're still cool. Like, I might not look like I'm particularly cool because not only am I older, I don't dress like I'm cool. I guess I have some tattoos and I kind of dress sort of all right for somebody who is sort of cool in the hipster-y way, like the post-hipster way. But no, I don't really think that I would be expected to be somebody who's cool by younger people. And that's kind of a weird predicament because ultimately I don't really care about being cool anymore. But at the same time, I can certainly identify it when I see it. And when people like Paul Joseph Watson started making the argument that conservatism is the new punk or whatever, it was really cringy. And the reason why it was cringy was not so much because it wasn't sort of true in a certain sense, but it was because you can't just declare something the new cool. It has to sort of start being that way, and then you can notice that and you can write an observation about it. But if you just say it out loud, that kind of nullifies it. But man, these young leftists, they just don't know anything. Like, back when I was younger, we were leftists. We thought that the war was bad and that you should vote for Democrats. And some people were into, some type of leftist economics to a certain degree, but it wasn't the same as it is now, where everybody's like a communist. Most of the people that we thought of as communists were not considered cool. We were like, what is wrong with those people? No, this is dumb. This is something that we know is dumb. And we did not consider the crazy activist communist kids cool. Nobody did. Nobody thought of them as cool overall. I'm sure they thought of themselves as somewhat cool, but they were mostly just really annoying girls that were outraged all the time, that everybody was like, ugh, God, ignore her. Like, if she ever talks in class, tune out entirely, because you're not going to want to start arguing with her, and just ignore them, Like, they don't have any guy friends. And what was actually really funny was at my school, there was like the group of activisty kids, and they were all either like lesbians, and this one in particular was the leader, and she was so annoying. And a lot of them were Jewish. There was this big Jewish component. Granted, this is New York City. And she, in particular, was very vocal about being against the occupation of the West Bank or whatever. You know, like, she was one of these Jewish people who was very into being Jewish, but simultaneously very anti-Israel. And I imagine had a lot of sort of anti-Jewish sentiments about her. So I'm not really sure what to say about that. I just imagine it has to do with family issues and maybe a little bit of self-hate or something. I'm not really sure. I wonder whatever happened to her. You know, some of these kids, like kids that I knew from high school who were like big vegans and activisty and really, I mean, mainly they were just really into veganism, which isn't the worst thing in the world because they could have been a lot worse. You know, it's just like, sure, kids who are really, really gung-ho into veganism, and they said these ridiculous things, like they would say, okay, so I went to school at an alternative high school, and they served a vegetarian lunch with a vegan option. But they decided one day to cook tuna as part of the meal for whatever reason. I'm not really sure why. I don't know why they broke the sort of unspoken rule that we had going on, but they did that. And the kids were so offended, and they actually compared it to, they were like, it would be the same to us as if you guys did something really, really homophobic and the gay or lesbian kids were mad about that. Like if you hired a teacher who was anti-gay or something like that. And it was like, no, you don't get to say that. That's not true. You can ignore this thing. Like, you are aware that a lot of the students eat meat, and we bring meat to school. Like, I would get hot dogs at the gas station that was a little bit down the street and bring them back to school. And these kids were just so entitled. But what was funny about them is that at least some of them are just totally no longer vegan. They admit that it was a phase. And some of them got married to each other, which is kind of interesting. So, yeah, that was a thing. But I imagine that's going to happen with these communist kids, with a lot of them, because, you know, the communism thing is largely just a phase that people go through when they're younger. And ultimately, due to the fact that leftists hate each other, they don't ever get along. It is not going to take all that long for them to get over it, though. The whole far leftist thing is a firm staple in our culture, in that in urban city center type areas, in places like Portland, Seattle, San Francisco, Berkeley, there is always going to be a number of activist organizations that get a lot of money from various places. I don't know. A lot of them probably get money from Burning Man. They get these weird grants so that they can keep going on. And so they're going to throw events and try to make it seem cool and appealing. And so it's hard to contend with that. You know, it's not really the same as other things might be. But still, I mean, there has to reach a critical mass where these people just kind of give it up and they realize that this is not making them happy. You know, I don't know, if enough Antifas get long prison sentences and they realize that they're never doing anything worthwhile, nothing's ever getting done aside from the fact that people get beat up and they get beat up by Proud Boys or whatever, and then some people end up in prison, and they're going to have to stop and think for a second, wait, what are we actually doing? What have I accomplished? Am I going to be happy if I keep doing this, or maybe I should just get away from it? But I imagine a number of the Antifas are being paid, so that's probably a thing. But how do you convince these people that they're just not cool? Because coolness is so... people think of it as so arbitrary. But, you know, like, there's a lot of young people who are cool who are just not leftists. And what I mean when I say cool and they're not leftists is that they understand... pop culture better, and they understand meme culture. Like, you know, that these people are the cooler ones because they have better memes. And when a meme comes out, like calling people boomers, boomers has quickly become the favorite insult of the left. Kind of like how they appropriated the insult snowflake, and now it's like, oh my god, Antifa beat the crap out of you and gave you a concussion. Oh, you're such a snowflake. Like they started doing that. Well, now they're doing that with boomer, and so it's a dead meme as far as anybody should be concerned. And that's a thing that you run into with a number of instances. But here's the thing, the young right-wing people out there, there's not that many of them who are all that cool, because a lot of them just seemingly stay on the internet and stuff. And so what I am curious about is, like, when is the music that comes out that is supposed to appeal to young people that is more right-wing oriented, or at least certainly not leftist, And I think that people should have more of it. I think that there should be more art, there should be more music, I don't know, theater stuff, maybe make some more animations, and those things do exist. But right now, the left still has this monopoly on the arts and entertainment scene, and I guess it has something to do with cancel culture, which is a very big problem when it comes to those types of things. But yeah, and it is a very, very strange question. I think that ultimately, though, probably what's going to happen is that the left is going to just tire out after they just keep losing and keep being wrong about absolutely everything. And then they're going to have to sort of face reality. They're going to have this epiphany that everything that they thought they stood for just ended up not being true. And that's kind of embarrassing. It's kind of silly. And I think that's the best that we can hope for. But I guess that this video is my formal request that people start trying to do a little bit more. Feminism is no longer cool. It really isn't. There's still a lot of feminists around. They still act probably crazier than ever. But that is just expediting the process of making feminism even more uncool. And it's not something that's treated as this hipster thing anymore. It's for aging women in their 30s who are single and they've gained a bunch of weight, and then people who are just kind of lifelong feminists who are older. And, there's younger feminists, but they aren't considered cool in the same way that they used to be. And I can assure you of this because I live in Seattle, and I was talking to a good friend of mine who's, she's not a feminist, and she noticed it too. She was like, yeah, this is not something that people are treating as if it's cool. And so... And I think that that's because of all of the defeats of feminism recently and all of the stuff that's come out because of the men's rights and anti-feminist stuff making a bigger cultural presence, that people are starting to realize, wait, feminism is just wrong. It's wrong about everything. And there's these young people that are actually into anti-feminism. So while we're going to still be feminists because, they all still want a free lunch, they all still want all those female privileges and everything, and all the guys who are just terrified of getting Me Too'd, they're going to, play along and everything. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be trying to convert a whole bunch of people in the same way that they used to. And yeah, what I'm just hoping for is that there's these people who come out and they are non-leftists. In fact, I would hope they would be anti-leftist and centrist, right-wing, whatever. I don't really care. But they're realistic, they're intelligent. They just understand that these things are a little bit more feasible, at least for this time period. They make more sense right now because the Democrats are just so heinous. Everything is wrong with them. There's nothing good about them right now. And then people start to have a little bit more culture, have a little bit more fun, stop being afraid of these people trying to cancel your band, and just be a little bit more open with your views. And I guess slowly over time, things will probably start to change. I don't know. I don't know. But I think that that's probably the way it's headed. If anybody has any ideas, drop them in the comments. And also make sure to follow me on BitChute. I'm very close to 500 subscribers there, so it would be really cool to get up to 500. And also follow me on Minds, and consider donating to me monthly on Subscribestar. That would be really, really awesome at this time, because, money is tight. I apologize that I haven't done a scripted video in a little bit, but I will be recording one very, very soon. It is going to be up. Gosh, I don't really know. It's written, though. I've been mulling over some things in my head about what could be better about it. All right. Talk to you guys later. I'm not sure if there's going to be a Gaytriarchy this weekend. Chadwick Moore's talked about coming on soon, and that would be cool. But I didn't read the book that I said that I would read yet, because I'm sort of a slacker sometimes. That's all.